China set for a space mission of a first woman astronaut. China is about to launch its fourth manned space mission. It's sending a crew of 3, including the nation's first female astronaut, to the orbiting Tiangong Space Lab. Their Shenzhou 9 capsule is set to lift off from the Jinghuan spaceport on the edge of the Gobi Desert at 1837 local time. A Long March 2F rocket will put the astronauts on a path to dock with Tiangong in a couple of days' time. They will then spend over a week living and working in orbit before returning to Earth. The mission is commanded by Jing Haipeng, who is making his second spaceflight after participating in the Zhengzhou 7 outing in 2008, the mission that included China's first spacewalk. Jing's flight engineers are both first-timers. Liu Wang, a People's Liberation Army fighter pilot, has got his chance after spending 14 years in the China National Space Administration's astronaut corps. Liu Yang, on the other hand, has emerged as China's first woman spacefarer after just 2 years of training. Her role in the mission will be to run the medical experiments in orbit. Zhengzhou 9 follows on from the unmanned Zhengzhou 8 venture last year that tested the technologies required to join a capsule to the Tiangong lab. Those maneuvers went very well and gave Chinese officials the confidence to send up humans. When it arrives at Tiangong, the Zhengzhou 9 craft is expected to make a fully automated docking, but there is a plan to try a manual docking in the mission. This would see the crew uncouple their vehicle from the lab, retreat to a defined distance, and then command their ship to reattach itself. Liu Wang will take the lead in the activity. "We have done many simulations," he said during the pre-launch press conference. "We have mastered the techniques and skills. China has first-class technologies and astronauts, and therefore I am confident we will fulfill the manual rendezvous." UN urges Bangladesh to take in people fleeing Burma violence. The United Nations has urged Bangladesh to accept refugees fleeing violence between Buddhists and Muslims in Burma. Tens of thousands of refugees have fled Burma's province of Rakhine by boat. About 30,000 are already in camps in Bangladesh. As many as 1,500 are said to have been turned back in recent years. The UN's refugee agency in Geneva, the UNHCR, says women and children have been left adrift on boats in River Naf without food or care. There are now a number of boats drifting in the mouth of Naf River with desperate people on board in need of water, food and medical care, the UNHCR said in a statement. It is vital that these people are allowed to access to a safe haven and shelter. The violence flared after the murder of a Buddhist woman last month, followed by an attack on a bus carrying Muslims which killed 10 people. Burmese officials have said the fighting has killed 29 people and thousands of homes have been burned down. Stateless group, most of the refugees traveled to Bangladesh by boat through the River Naf, which marks the border with Burma. The majority of the mainly Muslim Rohingya refugees already in Bangladesh are staying in 2 camps in Cox's Bazar district. Rakhine State is named after the ethnic Rakhine Buddhist majority, but also has a sizable Muslim population, including the Rohingyas. The Rohingyas are a Muslim group and are stateless, as Burma considers them to be illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. According to reports, rioting began on Friday last week in the town of Maundo, spreading to state capital Sitwe and neighboring villages. 2 days later, President Thein Sein declared a state of emergency there. On Thursday, Burmese opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi warned that the strife would continue without the rule of law. Speaking in Geneva on her first trip to Europe since 1988, she said the situation should be handled with delicacy and sensitivity. Congress breakaway group wins Andhra by-election. a group which broke away from India's governing Congress party is sweeping crucial by-elections in the southern Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Candidates of YSR Congress party have won the 9 of the 18 seats where elections were held. The party is leading in 6 others. YSR Congress is led by MP YS Jagan Mohan Reddy, who has been in jail for the past 20 days on corruption charges. Mr. Reddy denies the charge. He has accused the Congress party of vendetta. He is the son of YSR Reddy, the charismatic former state chief minister who died in a helicopter crash in 2009. Both father and son were members of India's governing Congress party. But after his father's death, the Congress ignored his bid for the chief minister's post and he quit, accusing the party of humiliating him and his family. Reporters in Hyderabad says Mr. Reddy's arrest appears to have helped his party win some sympathy votes. With 153 seats in 294-member Andhra Pradesh Assembly, the Congress still retains a majority. There is no immediate threat to the government, but the results are expected to have an impact on the general elections, which are due on 2014. Our correspondent adds. Voting for the by-elections was held on Tuesday. The election became necessary after ruling Congress legislators were disqualified for joining the breakaway group. We'll move on to the business world. Facebook technology chief Brett Taylor to step down. Facebook chief technology officer Brett Taylor has announced he is leaving the social network site in the coming weeks to start up a new company. Last month, Facebook floated part of the company on a Nasdaq stock exchange, making many of its employees millionaires overnight. Observers speculated at the time that some would move on to other things. Facebook shares have fallen sharply since the flotation to $30, 21% down on the launch price of $38. The company is also being sued by disgruntled shareholders who allege that Facebook's revised growth figures were not disclosed to all investors prior to flotation. Morgan Stanley, the lead underwriter on the share sale, said it had fully complied with the rules. Welcome to the world of science. GM crops aid plant neighbors. GM crops that make their own insecticide also deliver benefits for their conventional plant neighbors, a study in China has concluded. These strains seem to boost populations of natural pest controlling predators, and this effect spills over to non-transgenic crops, the research found. Details of the work by a Chinese-French team appear in the journal Nature, but one group critical of GM planting described the effect as a spillover problem, not as a benefit. Scientists investigated a modified version of cotton grown in China that generates a bacterial insecticide. The strain has led to a reduction in the use of insecticide to control a major pest in the cotton bollworm. After the GM cotton was introduced, researchers saw a marked increase in the numbers of pest predators such as ladybirds, lacewings, and spiders. At the same time, populations of crop-damaging aphids fell. The predatory insects also controlled pests in neighboring fields of non-GM maize, soybean, and peanut crops, said the team led by Dr. Kongming Wu from the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences in Beijing. And in sports, England wins Sweden thriller. Danny Welbeck hit a clever winner as England came from behind to beat Sweden for the first time in a competitive fixture after the Euro 2012 campaign flirted with danger in Kiev. Andy Carroll's superb first-half leader allowed England to establish comfortable control, but poor defending allowed Sweden to score twice and take the lead before the hour. England manager Roy Hodgson required inspiration and found it in a shape of substitute. Theo Walcott as Arsenal attacker turned the game around with a spectacular equalizer and penetrating run to set up Welbeck's deft backheel with 12 minutes left. Hodgson's side had been derided in some quarters for their conservative approach in the opening 1-1 draw with France. But there could be no complaints about the entertainment value on after here in Ukraine, although not all of it was intentional or admirable. And now, before we close today's bulletin of news analysis, let's have a recap of the main points. Egyptians to vote in presidential election run off. Campaigning ends ahead of crucial Greek elections. Nik Wallenda completes Niagara Falls tightrope walk. China set for a space mission of first woman astronaut. UN urges Bangladesh to take in people fleeing Burma violence. Congress breakaway group wins Andhra by-election. There we end today's bulletin of news analysis. Be with us in the coming weeks too. Thank you.